Now, I've been building FlutterFlow apps for quite a while now, and a lot has changed since when I first got started FlutterFlow apps to how you build FlutterFlow apps today. And today, you can use amazing tools that guide you through the whole process, every step of the way, resulting in apps that are better in every way and that also provide a much more robust user experience. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you an entire workflow of how you build FlutterFlow no-code apps today, leveraging amazing tools that we didn't really have access to even as far back as 6 months ago. And so if you're interested in building no-code apps, if you've ever used FlutterFlow before, you definitely need to watch this video until the very end, because I'm going to be sharing with you some amazing tips and techniques that are going to save you lots and lots of time and lots of hassle, and will let you build much better apps that you've probably built anytime in the past. And so the first thing that I want to talk about is my entire workflow, all the tools that I use to build amazing, robust FlutterFlow apps quicker and easier than ever before. Now, the first tool that I want to talk about is actually a fairly brand new tool from FlutterFlow themselves, and this is the FlutterFlow Designer. And so if you head to designer.flutterflow.io, you're going to end up on a page that looks something like this. And so on this main screen here, you have a text input where you can essentially prompt it or tell it what kind of app that you want to create. And it's going to go out and it's going to create the screens for your app, okay? And there's also a couple of cool features that allow you to take it further, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Now, you have this text input here, so you can type exactly what kind of app that you're looking to build so that it can create the screens for you. Here, you can attach images. So if you have a general idea, maybe you have some mock-ups, maybe you had a designer start working on it, okay? You can attach images here. Another thing that you can do is you can toggle between the mobile app view and the desktop app view. So if you're looking to build a desktop app, you're going to select this right here, and it's going to generate a UI for a desktop app that you're looking to build. On the other hand, if you're looking to build a mobile app, which is the type of app that we're going to be chiefly talking about in this video, then you need to select this toggle here, this mobile toggle. And then you can type the kind of app that you want to create, or you can select some of these ideas just to get you started. And so if you know that you want to build something like a trip itinerary planner, you can simply click here, and that's going to invoke or execute this entire workflow for you. So when you click something here, you won't be able to modify directly what you see here. That's going to execute this whole flow. Right here, you're at liberty to type what you want, but that is not something that you want to do. You want to do it a little bit differently, and I'm going to explain exactly what you need to do and why you want to do it a little bit differently in just a couple of moments. This is a very, very important point. But regardless of how you decide to create UI elements, whether by typing them here in this text input or by clicking one of the options here, you are going to eventually see mockups here. So as you can see, I have some mockups here. This is a 5-page mockups. Or I can go back here and I can select my other project, and this is a bigger project. So I think we have like 10 pages here or close to it. Yeah, we have 10 pages here. So this is a more complex app. And actually, these two apps are very, very similar. They're based on the same idea. It's kind of this Airbnb for digital nomads, okay? An idea that I had. And so this is a 10-page version of this app idea, and the previous was a 5-page version, okay? Now, when you are on the screen, there's lots of things that you can do, okay? So if I can click on any of these pages here. I can simply click here, and on the left-hand side, I can see all the pages, right? So I can select them here, or I can select them here, okay? And you can also zoom in, zoom out. Right here, you can also see where you are. You have this panning navigation, right? You can zoom out, right? You can also pan here. You can kind of see your frames here, your pages, your screens, whatever you want to call them. And here you can see the element tree, right? So if I select, let's say I have this onboarding page selected. Well, I have 26 layers, And I also see the relationship, right? So we start out with a scaffold. This is the case for all the pages, right? Regardless of which page you select, you have this scaffold, which is the root layer. That is the outermost layer, okay? And then you have a column, you have a stack, you have a container, you have you have things like a row, text field, an icon, etc. And these are very, very similar to actual FlutterFlow elements, okay? Because if you go into any FlutterFlow app, so let's say I go in here and I have a page, well, I see things that are very, very similar. In fact, a lot of these are pretty much one-to-one. They're pretty much identical, right? So this right here is a scaffold. This right here is a column. Then we have a container. We have all of this. And so if I go back here, I also have a scaffold. I have a column. I also have a stack, which is something that you can have in a FlutterFlow app. I have a container. I have an image. So I have all of these things. And so if you've used FlutterFlow before, or even if you've used, maybe even like Figma or any other kind of visual designer, you are going to be immediately at home here. And especially if you use FlutterFlow, because this is made by the FlutterFlow team. And so you're going to be immediately at home here, because that is how I felt, right? Once I saw this, I immediately made the connection to FlutterFlow, right? And so not only can you view all this, you can also click, right? You can click and you can select the individual element. And when you do that, that element's selected there, right? So let's say I select this container. Well, now this container, this whole container, you see it has this blue border around it, right? If I select something, something that's more inner, right? So one of these children, this container, this icon, well, as you can see, it's highlighted here. Now, by selecting these individual elements here, this right-hand pane activates, okay? And so here you can see properties, right? So we're not in this kind of read-only mode, right? We are actually looking at the different properties, and you can modify them, right? So if I select this text here, well, guess what? I can go in here and I can change it, right? So this is headline medium. I can change it to display large. And depending on my theme, this is what it displays it at, right? So let's go back to headline medium, because that looked a lot better. And I have the font here, right? Based on my theme, I have the color. So it's white right here. I can change it to red, right? Probably white looks a lot better. And I can make other changes. Okay, I have layout, I have line height, I have font weight, etc., etc. And depending on the field that you select, you're obviously, this right hand property pane is going to change to reflect the type of element, right? Because, different elements, they have different properties, right? So for instance, here I have something called a component selected. Okay, so now it has an icon, a title, etc. But if I select a button, well, guess what? Now we have states, disabled, loading, we have constraints, we have all of this. So I'm not going to go over all the different elements and all of its different properties, but suffice to say, you have very, very fine-tuned control, right? You can select anything pretty much and you can modify it there, okay? But even with this control, I noticed that the designs that it creates are really, really good. And this is me, who is not a designer, who is not a UX or a UI designer, who doesn't have like a trained eye. I noticed that the designs are really good. Of course, if you are, visual designer, more of a designer type person, if you have more experience with this, then you probably want to tweak some of these, right? And you can do that right here, or you can submit it as part of your prompt, right? Prompting is going to be a lot more efficient, and we'll get to that in just a couple of moments. There's a couple of important things that you need to know there. Now, another really nice feature here is that if you don't want to tweak something manually, right, by just clicking on it kind of this old school way, you can prompt it, right? So in other words, you can select anything on the page. You can select an element, you can select it here, you can select it here, and then you can just prompt it here, right? Because when you select something, you this dialog box, this text input box, a better way to call it, it has a context, right? So right now it's onboarding because I have the whole thing selected. But if I select this button, well, guess what? Now we have this listing details, right? Which is this whole thing, but we also have this button context. So it's passing in the page and the element, the unique element that exists. And so if I say something like increase the font by 2px, by 2 pixels, it should make this font bigger because it's gonna send an LLM call essentially with this context, and it's gonna get back this whole thing. Well, it's gonna get this modified with an increased font. And so let's quickly try this out. So let's say I want to increase the font here, right? This is a best example because I can set the font. So let's say the font, I don't know, 20, and you see it's actually real time, which is kind of cool. Let's say it's 26. Okay, so if I set that as 26 and I select that, well, I can say something like increase the font to 30 pixels. Okay, and let's see if it's able to do that. Okay, and there it is, right? So if we select that, the font size is 30, right? It actually changed it, right? This thing right here, it's 30. I can do that again. I can say increase the font to 34 pixels. Okay, and I can execute that. And that should hopefully do that. And looks like it did it. I saw it increased a little bit, right? So the font size is 34. And you should be able to do it across all over here. So if I select this, for instance, right, text, I should be able to increase it as well, okay? By simply prompting it and all of that. So you have this really nice control, right? You can change it manually. You can prompt it however you want to do. And so this is an amazing tool. It works really, really good. And we're going to be using it as part of our app building workflow. But still, there's some issues that it has right now that I have experienced. And so I want to show you some of the things that you may be dealing with and also some ways that you can rectify these issues. So the first issue that I have noticed with this tool is that it generates screens that look good here, but when you import it into FlutterFlow, they are not being rendered correctly, okay? So if you take a look at this app here, this is one of the previous projects here that I imported, okay? And so as you can see, lots of these pages work, and I already even fixed a couple, right? Because I was working on this app, but there's still a page that does not render. So if you take a look at this page, it's not rendering correctly, right? This obviously needs to be something else. And now you can obviously kind of figure it out where the issue is, where's the constraint, what's not being set correctly. But I have to admit that that's going to take some time, and it's not the easiest thing. There's a fairly steep learning curve to kind of figure this out. I actually spent like a couple of hours debugging one of the other pages until I came up with a much better solution. So the issue is that it ends up generating code that Flutter and FlutterFlow by extension cannot render correctly because there's some issue there. And this is an issue that I have experienced fairly frequently. In other words, if you create like a 10-page app, you know, at least two of those pages, they would not be rendering correctly. Now, fortunately, there's a really, really simple solution that I want to share with you guys right now. And that solution is something that I talked about earlier, is that you do not want to just tell it. You want to be more specific. And because this is essentially feeding it into a prompt, into an LLM, you want to create a prompt that does it. Okay, so let me show you one of my prompts that helps me create FlutterFlow working designs that will not crash in FlutterFlow. And here's the prompt that I use. It's a very, very simple prompt, but it has some hard layout rules, right? It's must follow. And I've created these rules after testing lots of designs and seeing which ones worked and which ones did not. So you can pause the video and copy this prompt. Now, there's a couple of things on this prompt that you need to edit, right? It's meant to be as a template that you can simply modify. So create a complete FlutterFlow app concept for, this is the app ID. And so let's say we want to create the same thing that I've been working on. So something like Airbnb for digital nomads, okay? Something like that. You can obviously use it for any app idea that you want. Doesn't really matter. So I'm going to say Airbnb clone for digital nomads. digital nomads, okay? And it's gonna come up with a name, or we can give it a name, something like this, but it's gonna figure out what we're looking for, okay? Now, the other thing that you want to change is the core pages only, right? So we can list the pages here, right? You can be more specific if you have a general app idea. But what I like to do is I'd like to give it a scope. So you can say list, you can list the pages. You can also say something like 6 to 10 pages, but I'm just going to say 5 pages, okay? Just to keep it fairly simple, but not too simple, right? This is kind of the minimum, just to show you this concept, okay? And that is the only thing that you need to change, right? In this template prompt, okay? 5 page, you need to list the pages, or you can specify how many pages. And you also need to actually tell it what kind of designs for what kind of app that you wanted to create. And then it has these rules. And the purpose there is to make sure that it works with FlutterFlow. Because sometimes, in my experience, it does happen fairly often. It obviously creates pages that are not rendered in FlutterFlow. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this and see what it creates. All right, so now we have 5 pages. It's going to go ahead and generate them. There we go, okay? And another benefit of using this prompt is that, in my experience, all the pages are created, because another issue that I had was some of the pages are not rendered right away. Now, if you see that, you can click here, and that's going to regenerate it. Or you can regenerate it if you don't like this page, if you want to see another variation of this page. From where I'm sitting, it looks really good. It looks really, really good, okay? So we have onboarding, right? It likes to create these onboardings. And this is something you can specify in the prompt, because I have noticed it likes to create this a lot. We have explore stays. This is our list of stays. We have a text input. You can specify, you have this anywhere, the date, guest, etc. We have our filters, right, that you can use. And then you have your details. We have the details screen. Then we have my bookings. And then we have profile and settings. Okay, so it's a fairly compact app. It's not a super complex app, but it gives you a lot of features, right? Because you have your onboarding, right? Which I feel is fairly optional, but that is a nice thing to have. It's not necessary, it's not required. You have explore, you have details, you have my bookings, and you have profile and settings, which I feel are enough to kind of get started and test out how this works. Now, once you have your designs, there's lots of things that you can do at this point, and a couple of them I still haven't covered. So you can obviously select them. You can take a look at the layer tree. And once you have any of these elements selected, you can modify it here. You can modify it using this prompt. You can also delete them if you want. So this is another nice thing, right? This is something that I can kind of see myself doing. So we have this pro tip. If I don't want that there, right, I can simply select it and press delete on my keyboard, okay? And now it has deleted it, right? So we have this over here. And you want to make sure that there's no kind of empty stuff happening, right? So we have this column, you have a container, and if we scroll down, you see we have this size box there, and you want to probably delete that as well, okay? And so I went ahead and I deleted it, and now it doesn't have that because I felt that was optional. Now you may think that that's nice to have, but my point is that it will generate functional stuff, but it would also add stuff that are more nice to have, which is something that you can immediately notice and take action upon, right? And so let's say that I'm fairly happy with this design. Okay, I looked at it, my designer looked at it, I'm fairly happy. And I'm interested in moving forward with this design, using this design to build an app. Now, at this point, you have a couple of options. And here you have 3 ways of exporting your work so that you can continue working on the SAP idea, right? You can export frames as PNGs. You can export the agent prompt, or you can export to FlutterFlow. Okay, so export frames to PNGs is pretty much self-explanatory, right? It's just going to create, PNGs that you can, look at, you can use them, you can, work on them later and do something else. You can export an agent prompt. So what exactly is this? When you're looking at this right here, there's a lot of stuff happening, right? So in other words, like you have these trees, you have all of this, you have a lot of data that's inside, right? If you export PNGs, you pretty much lose all of that. I mean, you can kind of feed it to an AI and have it figure things out by looking at stuff, and that may also work. But if you're looking to continue working with an AI agent, then what you need is the context. And that is exactly what this does. And I'm going to show you exactly how this works because we're going to be using this functionality. Last but definitely not least, and this right here is a feature that probably everybody has been waiting for. And this is a feature that makes this tool super powerful for FlutterFlow workflows, is that you can export all of this into FlutterFlow. Now, exporting frames as PNGs is nice. Export agent prompt is also great, which is an amazing feature all on its own. But exporting to FlutterFlow is an amazing feature because now you can bring stuff into FlutterFlow instead of just taking stuff out. Because if you recall, FlutterFlow has a feature that lets you export the generated code. But up until now, we've never had an ability to actually bring stuff into FlutterFlow, right? If you ignore, custom widgets, custom code, and all that, I'm talking about, taking like big pieces of app workflow, such as designs, and importing them here. So as far as I'm concerned, and long-time FlutterFlow developers will probably agree with me on this here. This is a big deal. So if you click here, you're going to be exporting to FlutterFlow, right? And essentially what happens is you're going to be seeing this copied into clipboard. So it's essentially taking all of this and converting into a kind of a FlutterFlow format. That's something that FlutterFlow understands. And all you need to do is come back and paste it in here. And that is exactly what I did, right? So what you do is you simply click here and you click paste. And it goes ahead and it creates all of these pages there, okay? And that is an amazing feature. I know I've said that before, but it is really true, okay? So the question is now, we know when to use export to FlutterFlow, but it's not really clear when you are going to be using this feature. Well, fortunately, I'm going to be talking about just that because in our tutorial here, we're going to be using both of these. So that way you can get the maximum utility from this amazing tool, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump back into FlutterFlow and I'm going to create a brand new project. And I'm just going to call it Airbnb for Digital Nomads. And I'm going to say start building. We don't need templates because we already have an app here created. And so that's going to go ahead and create a project scaffold for us that consists of just one page here. Now, this page here, we don't really need it. It's an empty page and we're not looking to do stuff here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm first going to import all the other stuff and then I'm going to delete this page. So what we want to do is we want to right click and we want to click on paste. Okay, when you do that, you are shown this dialog box, right? And it knows that we are pasting from FlutterFlow Designer. It understands that. And so it's telling us it's pasting 5 frames with a theme. Would you like to apply the designer theme or keep your existing project theme? Okay. Now, right here, I know that I want to use this theme here because this looks a lot better than whatever I have there, which is pretty much the default FlutterFlow theme. Okay, so it's also telling you some details about this pending import. 5 frames, 13 components, 16 theme colors, etc. So I'm just going to say apply designer theme. I'm going to do that. And now we have imported everything. So if you take a look, we have 5 pages, right? This icon here, this is a page icon, right? This is pages, but what you may also not expect is that it also has created components for some of the more complex elements that are deemed to repeat, right? So if you go back to the designer and you click on this, for instance, that's a component. Why is it a component? Well, because we have 4 of them and they're very similar. They're very similar in the way that they look. It's just, they have different stuff, but all of them have the same pattern. We have an icon, we have text, we have this kind of this light greenish background, and we also may have the same font, but that's probably more of a theme-based thing. But regardless, right, these are all, they have the same look and feel, essentially, right? And so as a result, it makes sense to package them as components. And that is exactly what this tool here does. This tool does it, and then when you import it into FlutterFlow, FlutterFlow displays them as components. So this is a nice touch. This is not something that's required, but it's something that the team has decided is better, because as a result, if you have this stat card, you can simply modify it once. You have this component here, and that's going to reflect across all of them because they're all the same component. The next thing that I want to do is I want to delete this page, right? A little bit of house cleaning. And now we've deleted it. So now we have 5 pages and we have a bunch of components here, okay? Now, the next thing that you want to do is you want to do a quick pass and see if all the pages are displaying correctly. So if you go into bookings, bookings is displaying correctly. You can scroll and everything is fine. If you go to onboarding, now onboarding does not display correctly, okay? And I know that this is probably a simpler issue because it's only this part that's not being displayed. And we're going to fix it in just a second, but let's continue. Profile postings, everything looks great. Explore stays, looks good. This is another list with these stay cards. And then last but not least, we have a detail page. And look at this. It looks amazing. Everything displays. And I can tell you from my experience working with this tool and trying to build various apps, is that if you did not use that custom prompt, you would have some issues. I mean, you may have one page that was completely broken, just like with the other example. So I would recommend using the custom prompt. It's not going to make anything worse, okay? It may fix things that would have been broken, but it's not going to break things. Next, you want to click here and you want to take a look at your project issues, right? We only have 4, which is not a big deal, really easy to fix. And so we have routing, which is entry page is not an existing page in the project, right? And the reason we see that is because we've deleted that main page and that was the main page. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to set it to, let's say, explore stays. And so what you want to do is you want to press Command K, you want to go into details, and you want to set this entry page to explore stays. Okay, and that's going to fix this issue. So now we should have 3 issues here. And it's telling us widget config. Widget has type of a non-existent component. So if I click here, and this is another bug, right? This is a FlutterFlow X bug, FlutterFlow Designer export. Basically, exports this as a container, and we don't have that container because it's even called a container, okay? So this right here, we have text, and then we have this, all of this is some container, and I'm not really clear what it's trying to do. And so if we go back to our bookings page, we see this, right? This is our page, and let me go back to this booking card. View check-in instructions, booking. So I see everything, right? Booking card. So this booking card has a container. So I'm not even clear what it's missing, right? It has this text, it has this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it. Right? I'm just going to delete it because there's nothing that we can do. There's no container here. So I'm just going to delete it. Okay? And that will fix that issue. At least one of them. Okay? So now we should have 2 issues, right? The other 2 issues is that we don't have Google Maps config for the Android API key and the iOS API key. Why is that? Well, because one of these pages uses a Google Maps widget, right? I think it's this one. No, it's actually stay details. Yeah. So as you can see, it's using Google Map, right? And when you're using a Google Map widget, you need to obviously supply an API key. Okay, and we're going to do that in just a moment. Now that we fixed these issues, okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this onboarding slide and see what the issue is. So this is the onboarding page. If you go back to onboarding, this is what it looks like. And I see that this is an image issue, right? And this is something that I've actually seen before, and this may be fixable with another version of the prompt, because this is something I have seen. So the issue here is that it's using this onboarding slide. If we go to onboarding slide, this is supposed to be an image. But if we scroll down, we have this text combination. It's using this URL, and it's passing it from the previous widget. So if we go to onboarding here, you see it's passing this image description. Okay, so I'm going to copy this image description. And we click over here and we scroll down. We have this text combo. And what it's doing is it's using this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that and I'm going to paste that. If I do that, it still doesn't fix it. So there's something with this. But if I copy this by itself and I remove this text combination. I just paste it directly. Now it works. Okay. So that's some kind of a bug where it's passing these args separately and they're not working as a text combo. But if you pass it all together, it works just fine. Okay. So it's some kind of a bug that you can tweak with a prompt, and I will probably do that later. But regardless, if you see an image not loading, you can see that this is it's because of this text combination, okay? And so now we're all good. Everything works. Let's go back to onboarding. Look at that, beautiful. You can also scroll, profile settings, all of that is there, explore stays, and we have another image issue, right? So if you take this here, same thing, image description, and if we go into stay card right here, it's not displaying this image. If you go into, let's find our image right here, because of this text combo. So I'm gonna remove this, and I'm gonna paste that I had before. I'm gonna remove this. See, even when it's by itself, so I think it's some kind of a text combination bug. Okay, it's not liking it. So I just remove this, paste that, and now it should work. We even have this little heart for favoriting different stays, and it's gonna toggle as well throughout the app building process. Okay, and so now if we go back to, what was it? Is this, no, not, is it Explore stays? Yeah, Explore stays. We see this over here. Now, obviously, this is gonna be different. We're gonna fix that, all of that. But right now, we've imported and we don't have any issues apart from needing the API keys and all of that. So the next step is that we need to configure API keys if we want to continue with this functionality of having this Google Maps. And why not, right? It's a good thing, right? We have this, we already have, parameters. We don't even need a third-party widget here, right? Because this is a detail. There's just one. We can just pass these as arguments, and that's it. And this is going to work, right? So it's a very, very low effort thing here. So we definitely want to be using that, okay? And so what we need to do is we need to click here. We're going to get redirected to the screen, and we need to fill all of this out. So we need an Android API key, iOS, and a web app API key. And the way that you get these keys is by going to Google Cloud Console, and you need a project, and inside that project you need to enable these API calls, and then you can generate a keys that you can paste here. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so here I am at Google Cloud Console. I am working on this project over here. So what I want to do is I want to search for APIs and services. I want to click here. And inside of this project, you have different APIs that you can enable, okay? And so right here, I want to click on Enable APIs, and I can search for, or I'm shown, Maps SDK for Android, Maps SDK for iOS, Maps JavaScript API. So if I click over here, I need to enable it. So it says here API enabled, right? I can disable it, I can manage it, but these APIs are enabled for this project, right? Because they're grouped on a project level basis. Okay, so if I go back over here, what I can do is I can go into credentials, and I can generate credential, one of them being an API key, that will give access to this project, okay? And that includes all the APIs that I have enabled. So I'm going to generate an API key over here. And here I can create an API key just for iOS apps, just for Android apps. I can, restrict it by IP addresses, by website. I can restrict it. Actually, this is a good idea. And so here, what you want to do is you want to just restrict it by maps, because the key that I'm going to be generating is going to be for all of them. I'm not going to be restricting it, but it's only going to be limited to these APIs. So, and I'm just going to call it map API key. Okay. And I'm going to say create. Okay, and here's my API key. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to paste it. And this is the key that works with all of these, so I can just paste the same key. And now these errors are going to go away. So everything is fine. So at this point, we are looking at the first stage, and that is the UI, right? I like to start with the UI, right? Because that's what the user sees. That's the most important thing. I don't start with a backend. I'm not starting with the logic. I'm starting with the UI, right? Because that's my source of truth. Once I decide on the UI, or this tool decides on the UI, and I don't modify it, I work off that. I build my database, etc., etc. Now, at this point, we are ready to start focusing on the database aspect. And here you have lots and lots of options. You can use anything that you want. It's really up to you. You can use Firebase's Firestore. You can use Supabase, up to you. I like to use Supabase. Okay, Supabase works really, really well for these kinds of apps. Okay, but you need to do it the right way. You can't just go out and use Supabase. You need to have it create the backend that's aligned with what we are seeing here. You can't have it create something on its own, right? You need to guide it. Okay, so make sure that you watch this step carefully. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to go to our Supabase dashboard, and here I am in my Supabase dashboard. I'm looking at a bunch of projects. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project, and I'm just going to call it Airbnb for Digital Nomad. I'm going to go ahead and create a password, and I'm just going to create a new project right here. Just leave everything on defaults and let it provision our new project. Okay. So here's our new project. And if you're not familiar with Supabase, then on the left-hand pane, you have different things, right? So Supabase is basically a full service wrapper, and it also gives you a bunch of other things on top of PostgreSQL, which is an industry standard relational database that has been around for ages. Okay, and if you want to kind of be an expert with Supabase, you want to learn more, you want to make sure that you create the right schema, you do it correctly, then definitely check out my Supabase training in the description below the video. It's the most comprehensive Supabase training out there. And my main emphasis is enabling you to really master Supabase. And not only that, but also understand how to get it to work with FlutterFlow and other no-code app builders that you may be building this app in. And so on the left-hand side, you have your table editor, you have your SQL, etc., etc. So now if you click on this table editor, you're not going to be seeing anything, right? Because this is a brand new project. We do not have anything here, right? If you go into authentication, you're not going to see anything. There's no users. There's no tables. There's essentially no data. There's nothing. It's a brand new project with no schema, no data. It's essentially waiting for us to create the schema, seed it with data, and connect it to our app. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing next. Now, here's an important part. We already have our app here. So our app is using a specific UI, and it's also expecting to have certain data. So here on the state details page, well, we need to be displaying all of this. This means displaying an image for that record, displaying the title, displaying the city, 2.4 miles from the city center, right? These amenities, right? Ergo chair, monitor, Wi-Fi speed, all of this, all of these other amenities about the stay, right? There's lots and lots of things that we need to have access to, and also the location. Yeah, we have this Portland, Oregon here, but we also need the coordinates, right? I don't want to do all of this in this app. This app is just going to get the data and display, and that's the best way. You want to have your backend doing the heavy lifting, okay? And also, you want to display, and not only that, you want to display the host, you want to display the price. And if you're, even the least familiar with how Supabase works, right, the relationship nature, you need to understand that we're talking about multiple tables here, right? Because, yeah, this is one table, right? And it's like name, the location, all of that. But here we're talking about the host. Well, guess what? This is another table, right? All of these are different tables. They're just joined together using something called a many-to-many relationship, right? You may have many hosts, many places, and one host can, manage multiple places, and one place can be managed by multiple hosts. Okay. So as a result, you have this many-to-many relationship in this case. And you may have, one-to-one relationship. You can have a one-to-many relationship. It really depends on what you're trying to do. In this case, it's a many-to-many relationship right off the bat, right? And if you scroll down, you have the pricing, and this can be another table. So this right here, the pricing can be a part of a one-to-many relationship. Why? Because, well, you have many properties, but each property has a unique pricing structure. That pricing structure may not specifically, for these dates, may not specifically relate or be applicable to some other place, right? Because a place has its own pricing structure. It's not like a host where it's not unique, right? This place can have, host A and B, and another place can have host B and C. So that one host can be managing both properties or many properties, right? Very, very common. But anytime you have something that's unique to a place, that becomes a one-to-many relationship, right? So in this case, this could be unique, right? Because this, it's only that this place can cost this much on these dates, right? Very, very important. Okay, so there's lots and lots of moving pieces. And the reason for that is our way of building apps is design first. And this is my preferred way of building apps. I want the UI. I care about getting the UI out. Everything else will make it work, but the UI drives all our decisions, right? So here we have a list view. It's probably a little bit simpler, right? But not as maybe not too simpler, but maybe not that simpler, right? Because we have ratings, and this is another table. That's a one-to-many relationship. We have favorites. That belongs to a user. If I log in, I may see a favorite, but if you log in, you unless you have this set as a favorite, you may not see that, right? So there's lots of moving pieces there, okay? And so what we want to do here is we want to go back to Designer, and we want to make use of this export agent prompt, okay? Because that is going to give an important context for our LLM to take this context and build out a schema for us and then feed it with data. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here. And when I do that, it opens up a dialog on my computer because I'm essentially downloading this. So I'm going to save this as Airbnb for digital nomads. And now I have the file saved. Now here's the directory. This is the file that I've just saved. So if I open it, this is what the file looks like. Okay, so it has this original prompt, okay, that I know because I've inputted it, right? I've created this prompt. I did that. So we don't really care about that. But what we do care about is everything else. Everything else. So starting from this theme, this JSON here, right? Look at this. And it's a big file, right? And what this file has is it has all of this in JSON form. So potentially we can feed it to an LLM and it will be able to figure out what we're doing here. And not only that, then it can take that and do with that knowledge whatever we needed to do, such as creating a database schema or creating seed records and all of that. And that is why this thing is super important. Without it, it's going to be very, very tricky. I mean, if we didn't have it, we would need to basically screenshot it and paste it. But, some pages, they're scrollable, right? So we might need to zoom out. We might need to take a look like this. And, we are going to be relying on the model understanding it, right? So it's a lot better that we have this agent prompt because that means we can feed it to an agent. And more often than not, it will figure out exactly what we're doing here. Okay. And that is exactly what I want to do next. And so here I have a terminal open. I'm in that same directory, this FF2. If I list it, we have this Airbnb for digital nomads. Now, my preferred AI agent is Codex. I really like Codex. And so I'm going to be using Codex here, but you can use Claude Code. You can use Cursor. You can use any other AI agent that is able to figure out all of this, and they should all be able to figure it out. And then we're also going to be linking it with Supabase. So you want to have so you want to be using an AI agent that supports MCP as well. Okay, and pretty much all of them nowadays support MCP. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and run Codex. I need to make sure that we have MCP enabled and connected to this database, because once it's able to figure everything out, we want it to go out and actually create the schema, create the data, some seed data that we can use for testing. Okay, so I'm going to type /MCP, and that's going to list our MCP. So I have all of them disabled. I already have a Supabase MCP. And so if you do not have a Supabase MCP, what you can do, you can simply Google for Supabase MCP, and you're going to end up on this official Supabase docs here. And as you can see, I'm already logged in, right? Because this is official Supabase page, and I am logged in my dashboard. And so I'm also logged in this page. And so now I can simply select a project, and that's going to give me configuration. So I already have all of this. It's just that I do not have it enabled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say enabled Supabase MCP server. And Codex should figure out that I have a Supabase MCP already configured in that config file, and it's going to go ahead and enable it for me. And I can also do that by modifying this file. And so it found this for me, but I like to have it do it. And there it is. It just, it commented out enabled false, and it, added this line enabled true. Okay, so now it is patched. Okay, so it has enabled our MCP. If I do /MCP, it's still disabled, but if I restart it, because at startup is when it checks which MCPs are enabled or not, I should have it enabled. So if I run MCP, now we have Supabase enabled. Now, the second issue that I have is that I was using this MCP config for another project. And so now I need to make sure that we have it configured for the right project. And when you are configuring a Supabase MCP, you need two pieces of data. You need the project reference, and you also need to give it a Supabase access token so that it can actually do stuff, right? Because if you give it a project reference, it's not enough for it to actually modify and work with data. And so now what I need to do is I need to give it these two pieces of information. So to do that, you can simply head to project settings, and here you have project ID, and that is enough. You can just paste project ID. And so I'm just going to paste it here. This is our new project ID. This is the old project ID. And we also need to give it a Supabase access token. And I've given it before. And you can find these access tokens by going to account preferences and selecting access tokens here. Okay. And as you can see, I have a bunch of access tokens, and this is the last token that I gave it, and it hasn't expired yet. Okay. And so I can generate a new one, but I know I've already given it, and it hasn't expired, so I'm just going to use that one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say modify the Supabase MCP to use this project ref, and it will locate the appropriate config file and swap, the new one for the old one, or the old one for the new one. Okay, and that's exactly what it's doing here. Okay, updated the Supabase MCP config. So now if I exit and I run it again, and I do /MCP, it's going to be enabled, and it's going to have this new ID. So this is very, very important, because if it didn't do it, or if you're doing it manually, or it screwed up, which does happen, you want to make sure that this ID is the same, and that is exactly the ID that I have here. So now we have it connected. One final test before we move further is we want to ask the LLM something about the data. And typically I like to ask it to tell us the tables that we have. And right now we don't have any tables, so let's see if it's able to figure it out. So using Supabase MCP, tell me all the tables in our public schema. Because we have multiple schemas when we create a project skeleton, but in public, there's not going to be any tables. And it's, I can see it right away. There's nothing there. So the public schema currently has no tables. I queried Supabase. So if it wasn't connected correctly, it would have given us an error by now. But as you can see, everything is fine. Okay, so at this point, we have this brand new Supabase project connected to our AI agent, right? Codex in this example, but it doesn't matter. Cursor, Claude, Code, doesn't really matter. It's the same workflow. Okay? And so what is the next thing? Well, the next thing is to take all of these designs and to try to derive a schema for this. Okay? And this is the tricky part. Okay? But not only that, the kind of schema that we want to create as far as FlutterFlow is concerned is a special type of schema where we are prioritizing views, right? FlutterFlow does not give us pretty much any way. It's not possible to do joins, right? Because When we create a relational database, you typically have a new table for a new entity, right? So stays is one table, users is another table, amenities could be another table, reviews, ratings is another table, pricing is another table. All of these are different tables. And in order to have this UI, we need to join them. And you can't do it on FlutterFlow. Well, fortunately, you can do something called a pre-join. You can do a computer join, and that's essentially what a view is. A view is like a table. You can access it. It's a read-only entity. You cannot edit it. You cannot modify it, but you can read it and get the exact data that you need. Now, views are great anywhere, but they're especially important when we are building a FlutterFlow app. But even if I didn't have a FlutterFlow app, I would still prefer views, because that means that all the heavy lifting is done on the back end, right? So, Supabase is doing all that heavy lifting, right? I don't want to be doing joins and all this, DB stuff in my app, especially in the front end app, because that will introduce latency, right? The user will need to wait while all of that work is done. I want Supabase to do it. Supabase will always do it better than me, right? Because it knows how to optimize it properly. Now, remember what I said. We are working with a couple of pieces of data and also some constraints, right? We have this right here. We have this agent prompt context, and we also need to have it create schemas in the way that we want, right? And you can probably tell where I'm heading with all of this. We need a custom prompt. We can't just go to Codex and say, hey, Codex, this is our, prompt schema, this prompt context that, FlutterFlow Designer gave us. Go ahead and create views for it. You need to tell it in a certain way. And so I have a custom prompt that does it. And this is what the prompt looks like, okay? It's a big prompt, and that is because we wanted to get it right. Generate a brief, practical Supabase Postgres backend proposal for the attached app design context. Okay, we're not yet creating the schema. We're asking it to create a proposal as opposed to jumping to have it do everything at once. And here's I'm saying design a Supabase backend that works well with FlutterFlow's limitations, especially simple page widget queries and limited complex filter composition, optimized for FlutterFlow integration over theoretical purity. And we also wanted to kind of output a bunch of things that it's going to do, so we can review it and modify it as we see fit. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to copy this context, right? So it has it. And so I'm going to say use this as the context, and then I'm going to paste the prompt. Okay, copy this here. And in fact, the prompts mentions the attached app design context, right? I'm just giving it directly. And I'm going to paste this here. Okay, and I'm going to run it. Okay, and now we need to wait, because it needs to figure out what kind of app that we're looking to build. And that is exactly what it's working on right now. So it has read our context here, right, that we gotten from FlutterFlow's designer, and it's trying to figure out, it's trying to make sense, what is the app, right? Short of us telling it or sending in screenshots, this is a lot better because everything is in JSON. And these models, they love JSON. They love machine readable formats like such as JSON. Okay, so look at this. The core product shape is clear now. I'm checking the onboarding copy, verification page, booking instructions, etc., etc. Okay, so I've got the bookings and profile. And also, this is nice because we have 5 pages, and we want to make sure that when it, gives us the report, that it kind of matches up with what we have here. So it doesn't, think that one of these is a page. That is why it's a very, very good idea to do it kind of a two-step, have it as a two-step process. So let's wait a couple of more moments here. All right, so after a couple of moments, it has figured out what we have, and it's creating a report that's going to work with FlutterFlow, okay? So here's the report, lots of things. I can scroll up, and if I scroll down, this is my prompt, and here it is, assumptions. Based only on this, the 5 MVP pages are onboarding, explore stays, and that is exactly what we have. I can tell right away. Search feed focuses on monthly stays with work-centric attributes, stay details, bookings. Next, we have the page inventory, entity model. So it has created all of these entities. It will, right? Scheme strategy, write, stay, normalize, SQL, DDL, right? Extensions, right? These are enums, right? So an enum is a type of field that can only have one of these values. Okay, so it's not like a free-form text field or like a free-form number field. It needs to be one of these, and that's great because, well, for booking status, it can only be one of four. For verification status, only one of these. Payment method kind, only this. And now it's creating it's outputting the SQL read views, right? So this is important. We have the views here: explore stay, stay details, bookings. We have supported. That's the supporting page, right? So we have views that are multiple views on a page, right? It understands that there's lists there that we need a view to be able to pull the data, right? Profile dashboard, right? Profile and settings. And this one here is one. And it also gives us why. One row, current user summary, removes, joins across profiles, prefs, right? It has justification, right? A nice report. Scroll down. We also have functions, right? What is an RPC or a function? Well, when you think about a view, it's kind of fixed, right? You cannot, you can't ask a view using some complex data, right? Well, a function allows us to query something using all kinds of, more kind of dynamic parameters. Okay, that's what it is, right? Why a view is not enough. Date range, availability, plus optional multi-filter search, plus dynamic sort, right? So it's kind of like the next level. It's a more dynamic view. And here it tells us parameters, right? So this is for available stays and return shape. Same card ready columns as vExplore stays, right? So we can basically query a view data in ways that you cannot do it on a view, right? Because it's dynamic, right? Think about it this way, right? We are creating views for specific use cases. Well, if we have another use case that's not covered by the existing views, well, guess what? We're screwed. And so this thing allows us to essentially create a view on demand. It's a dynamic view. That's what an RPC, remote procedure call, or functions essentially is. This is the actual function there. And so now we can simply execute it, and it's going to give us all the data that's dynamically. Because if you think about it, the user is typing. They need a place from the 1st to the 5th, from the 8th to the 9th, from the 9th to the 31st, right? We do not know. It's dynamic. We can't really use it with a view. And as a result, it decided to create this function for us. Now, a quick note here is that this function is not the same as a cloud function, right? This is actually part of PostgreSQL. It's part of the database functionality. Cloud function is part of Supabase. It has nothing to do with the database piece. It's just a way to run your code in the cloud where Supabase runs it. Okay, it's a completely separate concept. Now, next we have the RLS plan. This is the row level security, right, plan. We even have the seed data plan, right? Covers 6 stays across Bali, Portland, Mexico, Copenhagen, Zermatt. Okay, I actually have no idea where this is. If you know, let me know in the comments below. Public profiles, we have all of this, right? This is our seed data and recommended view naming and all of that. We also have FlutterFlow mapping, right? How things map. Let me see if I can expand it. Yeah, it's not really clear, but you can see that the page, source type, source name, how everything maps. So explore stays, view, it's going to be using these views, etc., etc. Recommended view naming, delivery order, summary, and all that. Now, it's important to understand that it hasn't done anything yet. It just came up with a plan, okay? The schema, and even some data. The next thing that we need to do is once we have this, and once you kind of read through it, and I highly recommend that you do, make sure it's not inventing stuff. You want to have it do a migration, right? Basically implement the schema. So I'm just going to do a schema migration using Supabase MCP for this schema above. And what is that going to do? It's going to create all of the schema in our Supabase using the MCP, and it's also going to seed it with the data. Okay, so let's wait a couple of moments here. Okay, so it's telling us the schema migration is applied in Supabase. Created all of this, applied migrations, verification. Okay, so now let's go ahead and verify this. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page. I don't even need to. It refreshed automatically. And we have this, right? we have our views, right? This eye icon denotes a view where these are the tables, right? So this is explore stays, and it's empty because the tables are empty, right? Stays is empty, everything is empty. It hasn't seeded the data, and it tells you, I did not load the mock seed data yet. If you want, I can apply a second migration for the seed set next, and I'm going to have it do it. Yes, go ahead and seed the data. Okay, and now we have it. Seed data is applied, created data for auth users, for profiles, etc. Applied migration, seeded auth users, right? So if we go back here and we go into user preferences, we have preferences, languages, user verification. Okay, we have this. And we should have these auth users, right? So if we go back here, if we go into auth and we go into auth users, we should have users here. And here are the users, 4 users, and they should hopefully be connected to the other users, right? I don't know if this instance ID, if they're all the same. Well, this ID is not, so maybe they should be fine. We'll check all that. And verification nodes, seed password used in the migration. So we have the seed password. So hopefully we can log in with this password. And now it's telling us small readme, generate type. We don't need any of that. Okay, we can do a second seed pass for more amenities, more stay images, or additional booking states. Okay, so at this point, we have a nice start. So if we go back to our public, we have all of this. And a lot of these should have. So the views, yeah, this view has stuff. This one doesn't. Let's see if this one, stay details. Okay, so stay details. So some have, some don't. That's absolutely fine. Past does not, upcoming. So let's say we want all of these views. So what we want to do is we want to tell it, ensure that currently that all views spit out some data. Right now, what do we have? Actually, only explore stays. Yeah, right now, v explore stays and v stay details show data in the dashboard, in the Supabase dashboard. Okay? We just want to make sure that all of them have some data, right? It's a good thing for testing. All right, there we have it. A verified row counts from the dashboard context. Okay, so now we should have at least something. Okay, cancel. Okay, so they all have it. It even checked it out. What is this? Ah, it's in Switzerland. Okay, good to know. So at this point, we have our schema, we have our views, we have our seed data. We are ready to connect our app with our Supabase backend. Now, once we have the front end design and we have the backend connected, we still need to figure out one more thing, and that is, do we have a situation that cannot be handled by stock FlutterFlow widgets? In other words, is there something complex that requires a custom widget, a custom action, something like this? Looking over this app, I do not see a situation that may require some custom code, some custom widget, custom development, okay? Because a lot of these, they can be easily handled by existing FlutterFlow stock components, right? So the first thing I looked at was the map, and the map is very stock. Like, we're not listing, different points everywhere. We're centering on the point, on the location of this listing, of this state, okay? And going across, I'm not seeing anything that requires super custom, okay? Now, in this example, it feels to me that there is nothing there. But if you have a more complex app, you don't have time to look at and kind of figure things out. You want things to just work. And so I went ahead and I created a custom prompt that tells me if our design calls for custom widgets that cannot be handled by FlutterFlow. And so I'm going to go ahead and run this prompt to see what it tells us. But before I do, let me show you this prompt so you have a better idea of what we're trying to do here. And so here's the prompt. Using the attached design context, determine which FlutterFlow custom widgets are actually needed, list them, generate them, etc., right? So I have lots of things. And I also give it a template of how FlutterFlow custom widgets are supposed to be working. Okay, so there's a widget decision matrix, final custom widgets shortlist. So we want to avoid custom widgets if we can, but if we cannot, we can't avoid them. This system is going to help us actually create them, okay? So I'm going to run this prompt here and see what it comes up with, okay? So I'm going to run this here and I'm going to and tell it use this context. And here's our file. I'm going to go ahead and drag it here. And now it knows the context. It's going to run that prompt, and let's see what it says. I'm going to go ahead and run that. So it's telling me the only service that might justify custom work is the map area. So it's double checking. That's exactly what I looked at, right? Because there's nothing else that really justifies custom widgets. If it's only a preview, the correct answer is 0 custom widgets. Okay, so it came up with this matrix. No custom widgets are recommended, so no FlutterFlow custom widget API is needed. Use FlutterFlow parameters, page state, and state. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. And that's it. Final recommendation, 0 custom widgets are actually needed, okay? And I actually ran this prompt for more complex apps, and it did come up with custom widgets. But in this case, we don't need any custom widgets, right? These surfaces should stay native to FlutterFlow, etc. And once again, this is the prompt here, okay? And I'm going to be making all of these prompts available inside of our amazing Patreon community. So if you're still not a member, definitely click the first link in the description to go ahead and check it out and hopefully subscribe. Now, since we don't need any custom widgets here, we can continue with normal FlutterFlow development, that is wiring up the UI to our database. So next, what we want to do is we want to connect our app to our Supabase backend. We can do that by pressing Command or Control K, typing Supabase, enabling Supabase, and what you need here is the API URL and the anon key. And you can get that from your dashboard. You can go into Project Settings, you're going to go into Data API, and you're going to copy this API URL. Next, you want the anon key. Project Settings, you want to go into API Keys, and you want to click on Legacy Anon Service Role Keys. So I'm going to copy this, paste that in there, get Schema. And now, as you can see, everything is here. We see the views, we see the bookings, everything is connected. And so the next piece is the logic, right? Having this app start to interact with our backend to show the data that the user wants, right? This is the missing piece. And so let's go ahead and do that right now. But before we do that, I want to ask help from our LLM so that it helps us to kind of, tells us how to do everything correctly, okay? And so I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say, I am ready to link up my, FlutterFlow app with Supabase. Can you list the views that need to be connected for each page? So it's going to tell us, this page needs these views, that page needs, other views, right? So it's telling us page connect to onboarding static page, no Supabase source. Explore stays, okay, also needed beyond view. Stay details amenities list, right? Filtered by stay ID, stay details gallery, right? So it's telling us, it's giving us hints how to properly link it, because what might happen is that you typically know how to do it, but you may, because you don't know the schema as well as, the LLM that created it in the first place, you may do this correctly, but then amenities, you may just go and link to a table or get it from a table or create another view or something else. Have the system tell you how to do it, how to link it correctly. Recommended FlutterFlow setup, explore page, backend query on vExplore stays, detail page. If you want, I can turn this into a checklist. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So let's start with a explore stays, okay? Explore stays. Am I on explore stays? I am on explore. Yeah, perfect. What we need to do, this is very, very simple. It's just this list here. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, if you scroll down, you see this column here. It just lists these ones. Now, this needs to become a list view that just lists one of them because we're going to be feeding it data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this column, right click, replace widget, list view. And then I'm going to delete all of this because all we need is just one. Okay, so we have this, and now we can go to this list view and we can feed it data. Add query, Supabase, and what do we need to do? vExplore stays, right? So vExplore stays, this is our main list. And pretty much it. Confirm it, confirm it. And now we're looking, we're going to be showing, listing our state. Now, we also need to fill a lot of this other stuff here. Okay, so favorite, not favorite, all of that. And so this right here, this is the stay card. So the stay card is getting all of this. And that's nice because we can just send it, right? So if we go over here, well, first, let's send it a unique key, and that's going to be this stay ID, right? That is unique across all the stays, which is optional, but it's good practice. Image description. Let's go over here and let's take a look at our image description. So we don't have an image description, but we have a hero image URL, which is probably better. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pass this URL, and then we'll fix it so it just displays the URL. Wi-Fi speed. Let's just search it. Wi-Fi speed. Okay, so this is megabytes, and this is actually a Supabase row field. No change. Title, right? I can just type title, and it's going to give me title, right? Because it knows it, right? It's getting it from, the context, right? So it's gonna have it the same way. Rating, location, location label, workspace, workspace type, price, monthly price USD, price label. Okay, so this depends on what you want to display. So if we go to database, our tables, we explore stays, and you can see everything here. So what do you want? You want this or you want the price label? Well, I want the price label. Probably makes more sense. And that's it. And now it's going to be displaying everything correctly except the image, right? This image. So we're going to go into this stay card. We're going to click on this. We're going to select our image. See how the image is being loaded. And we're going to pass the parameter, right? So what we want to do is we want to pass the image, right? Actually, it's not even a parameter. What is it called? Let me go back. It's this image description. We're passing this as URL. Oh, it's no longer image description, it's the URL. So what we want to do is we want to go back. We want to select the image. We want to come here and yeah, this one. Unfortunately, we can't, it needs an image path. Okay. And this is image description. And so what we need to do is we need to change the type of parameter here. It's just a quick edit, very easy. Okay, so I went ahead and I added this new parameter, image path, which is an image here. And if we go to the stay card, you can see now this image is feeding from that parameter, this image path, okay? And so that should hopefully display it when we run it because we have images, we should have images in the database. So at this point, we have it all set up. This one is not used anymore, I just left it, but we are using this one now, and that's being sent directly, this hero image URL that's being displayed. So all of this is good. There's a couple of issues here. So like the view details, this button, there's some padding. So if we go to the stay card, and we click on this button, what you want to do is you want to make the width of this button. So it's going to be maybe like 100, and that's perfect. So that fixed it. Now this looks good. We have this. This is obviously being passed. All of these are passed from the list view as it's displaying the components. Okay. Now, one other change that I want to do is it says where to next. I believe this should be a text input here because there's no way to type. There's no text input. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this widget as a text field. Okay. And we're going to change this hint. Going to remove the hint. So I think that's the idea there. Okay. So now they can type it, and we're going to be filtering it, and it's going to display everything here. As you can see, there's a bunch of stuff here. So like they can select, fast Wi-Fi, container, they can sort by price. And in order for that to work, we need to use page state variables, right? So I'm going to create a bunch of page state variables for this. I'm going to do a search query. I'm going to say sorting, ascending. Sorting ascending is going to be how we want to be sorting it, and that's going to be a Boolean. So by default, it's ascending, right, as the price increases, and then you can change that. We're going to do that, and we're going to add another field. And then we can, and once we do the query, we can take this into account, right? So let's go back here. We have this main query here, and we can just filter stuff, right? We can simply go over here, and we can filter. I can say, well, I want the title, to be, whatever the user searched for. We can say like, and whatever the page state variable was, search query. And I want another query, and I want, let's say sorting, ordering. I want to order by price, let's say monthly price USD. Okay. And I want to do it in increasing. And obviously this right here needs to be done dynamically. And we'll do that dynamically in just a second. And so because these depend on, like, for instance, this depends on the page state variable. If a page state variable is changed, so for instance, if you press enter here, right, we're going to add this, and what we're going to change the state, and it's going to refresh all of this, right? So we're going to say state, update page state, and we're going to set search query to whatever the user is searching. So we're going to come here, widget state, where to next, okay? And so if they type that, that's going to rebuild the current page, which is what we want, and that's going to rebuild the query automatically because that's built in. Now here it says a variable search query is not nullable but has no default value set. So we're going to set it to something. I'm just going to set it loft, okay? Because I see a loft over here. I'm just going to set it default to loft, and this is going to display it. By default, I'm just going to have it. This is going to be loft. Okay, let's go ahead and run our app. See if that works. And there's our app loading, right? No issues. Everything is good. No red screen of death. Nothing like that. Let's finish waiting. And so right now it's not displaying anything. And at this point, I'm not sure why it's not displaying anything. It could be because of RLS. It could be because of we're not querying it correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our agent, okay? I ran the app, but it does not display anything. Are the logs showing anything? Is it a query issue or RLS issue? And this can actually check the logs and see if we're getting these requests connected. Okay, let's see if it's able to do that. Okay, so it is getting to us. So this is something I suspected. It's the way that we're forming this request. Yeah, so it figured it out. It needs to be, okay. Like loft, we need to specify these. It needs to be like this. Okay, so it basically told us, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do case insensitive. And now let's say we do a combine text, and we do this. And this is where we need to pass the widget state. We can get the page state, search query, add, do this. Okay, that should do it. Okay, so now it's this. So let's go ahead and rerun that. All right, and there you go. Now we see it. Okay, now we see it. So we have an issue with the image, but at least we're finding things correctly, right? That initial search that was set to this loft found it correctly, right? If we type loft 22, it doesn't find it correctly because it sets this page state to loft 22. But if we remove that, press enter, now we find. If we type something like forest, now we have two results, forest, edge, studio, and cowork, right? If you type something like cowork, we see this cowork, right? If you type something like studio, we see the studio. If you type something like edge, right? So looks like it's working correctly, right? These are the amenities, workspace type. What is the title? Nordic, flat, den, cabin, loft, den. So if I type den over here, we have a couple of dens here, right? Everything looks good. We have view details, okay? And so now let's go ahead and continue this process. Let's go ahead and continue our pages, okay? So this view detail, which is actually a part of the stay card, that needs to redirect to our detail page, okay? So if we go to the detail page, we need to pass the studio, the ID of the place. So I'm going to do this add action, navigate. This is going to stay details, and we're going to pass a parameter, stay ID. And are they integers? I don't remember. No, they're UUID, so it's going to be a string. Okay, and so now once we have that, we can do this big query and get everything that we need here. Stay details, just a single row, filter, stay ID, parameter. Oh, we don't have this parameter? Ah, I forgot to create it. Okay, stay ID, and we need to make sure that it's passing it correctly. I guess I forgot to save it. Okay, there it is. Okay, that should do it. All right, so now clicking on it, we'll go to that next page, to the detail page, and we're going to display everything here, okay? So if we go into state details, that's what they're going to see. Okay, so now we have to fill all of this out here. All right, so at this point, we have explore stays mostly wired up, and we're going to fix it up. We're going to make it better a little bit later as we go along, but it's mostly wired up, and it's this thing that's wired up, right? This stay card, this card right here, this stay card right here, that's kind of wired up, right? In fact, it's from here, right here. So that's all wired up, okay, and we're going to fix it a little bit later. Let's go into state details and do the same thing. And so the next thing we need to do is at this top level, we need to get the data. So we're going to come here. We're going to do a Supabase query. This is going to be a single row. Do we have a detail? We state details. Okay, and this is single row, and filter is stay ID is equal to stay ID. This parameter, confirm. And now we can start wiring them up. So let's go with the image first. Here we won't be able to do it. Okay, here's the hero image URL here. Next, we have this title. And here you can just type. Okay, it's going to find it because it knows what the name is. So the default value is title. So it has something. So it doesn't throw that no value exception. This thing here, right, we need a combine. We need the city name, and we need X miles from the city center. So I think we have that. Distance. Okay, so we have that. We have all of these filled in. So we need to do combine text, and we need to do city. And I think it's like this, or like a dot, a raised dot. So I'm just going to do that, and miles. Okay, that's going to calculate everything. Wi-Fi speed. Default we need Wi-Fi. This is our chair. Has ergonomic chair model. You can do that. Right? Remember, we're doing a digital nomad, Airbnb for digital nomads. Okay, we have the monitor label. Next, we have these work badges, and I'm just curious about this. And I have this card here, and that tells me how to set things up. So state details, this is this amenities list. So we need to connect stay amenities filtered by stay ID, okay? And this is what, actually, these are the amenities. These are the work badges, let's say. Okay, let me take a look at our database, state details, location label. Look at that. Perfect. State detail, monitor label, stay amenities, icon name, title, subtitle. Look at that. Dedicated workspace. Okay, so what we can do is we can just filter stay amenities by the stay ID, right? These are all for the same stay, and we could just get this data. Okay, so here what we can do is, this is a wrap, which is fine. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this. And then we're just going to do this. We're going to come here and do a backend query. And we are going to say amenities. List of rows, and we're going to do a filter. Stay ID equal to stay ID. Okay? And here I'm just going to feed it, right? We have the stay amenities, and here we have an ID. We can feed it here, but for this label, I'm just going to do title. And here I can just do ID because that's unique. Okay? So now it has that. And then you can also list them here, okay, as well. So if you come over here, you can see that this is a container, this is a column. So this column here, this container, we need to wrap this container in a list view. So we're going to wrap it in the list view. And now, yeah, that's it. And now we can remove the other container because now this is a list view, and same thing, amenities. Oops, Supabase. And we can filter the same thing by stay ID, confirm, and then we can simply list. Now we have the icons as well. So we can get an icon, stay amenities. Do we have an icon? We have an icon name, but it's not an icon, okay? So, and here we can just display the name, right? Stay amenities, title, and subtitle. Default value. And that's going to list all the amenities, right? We also have show all 32 amenities. What we can do here is we can just say something like, yeah, we can do all that, but only if there are more amenities than 4 amenities, right? So if it's like, yeah, what we can do is we can do a limit, just display 4 or 5. And then this can only be active if there's actually more than 5 amenities that we're not showing. Okay, so I'm gonna do this conditional, and we're gonna say, yeah, so our list for these amenities is inside that, and that's why it can't really see. In fact, I'm gonna copy that, and I'm gonna wrap this button in a container. Okay, and then I'm gonna do it on the container level. Okay, and then inside this button, I'm gonna remove this, and now what we can do is we can do this. Rows. Select rows, and this is, this the list of rows, right? We have the actual rows, and what we can do here is we can create a condition. Number of items greater than 5. Just greater than, not equal to, and we have 5 as the main cutoff, right? Greater than 5. And so if it's greater than 5, this is going to display. And then we can also say something like this. Combine, show all. We can do show all. This is the number. Amenities. Okay, so that's going to display. Next, we have the host card, and we just need to pass the data. It's really easy. We don't even have to mess with the components, right? So here we should have it. Host name. Yeah, it's all done. Rating, and this is host rating, right? Host rating and reviews. Review count. Host review count. That's it. Is it a host rating? Hosted by, yeah, it's a host rating, because the rating, it's not even being displayed here. I guess I don't even see the rating, but this is host rating, right? X reviews. This is all for the host. All right, so now we just need description, and the price. Okay, so this is the price, monthly price, price label. Okay, monthly price. And this is the dates that they search for, right? Where, this is what they search for, the dates. Okay, and that's going to be part of the state that they search for. So this button, why is this button not working? Okay, I can't actually figure out why it's not working. It could be something here. So in those cases, what I'd like to do is I'm going to take an existing button, go to the host card here. I'm just going to copy this. Do that, copy. And then you can go to state details, the same one, and you can just paste another one. Paste it right here. Okay, now we have this button here. Okay, so you can delete this button, and you can take this other button, just move it below it. Okay, so now you have a button working. So now you can make it whatever you want. So I think the border, I think it was green with the text color was white. Let's see if that we can get it to work. Text color white and the button fill color green. Okay, so now it works. Okay, so if you have these situations, just copy another button. And this just says reserve. And here you can expand it. Okay, perfect. So now it's the same style. Okay, so this looks good. Everything looks good. We still need this, the locations, right? So this is lat long. I don't think we have it. Yeah, we have latitude and longitude, but we don't have it as a kind of this thing here. So for that, what we need to do is a custom function that simply generates it. So I'm just going to do a function, create the function, and I'm just going to say get lat long. And this is going to be lat long because it's a special type and we're not storing it. And we're going to pass in a lat, which is a double, and a long. All right, and then all we need to do is just generate it, right? So we can just do, in fact, we can even use Code Pilot here, right? But I believe it's the name, it's this function right here. You see it wants a latitude, longitude. So we're gonna say latitude. Why is it? It's a double. Actually, yeah, it's not nullable. It doesn't like nullable. It wants a better contract. This is not nullable. Okay, and so now that is what it's gonna do. We're going to save it, and we're going to pass the lat long as separate values. Okay, and so this is going to pass the data because we have the lat longs. If we go in here, we state details, right? We have the lat longs somewhere. Yeah, right there. Latitude, longitude. We have it here. We have everything. And this is pretty much done, right? This is pretty much done. So we have explore stays, which is done, right? We still need to fix this one and a couple of other things that we need to fix. Profile settings, right? We have the profile table, right? So if we go over here, we can simply load it. At the top level, profiles, profile dashboard, single row, filter, user ID is equal to authenticated user. We need a login page. We don't have the authenticated user. So we need to create a login page, okay? And there's a couple of ways of doing it. We can go back to Designer and say, hey, go ahead and create us a new page, right? We can just do that. Create a simple login page. That's going to go ahead and do that. Okay, there it is. Looks good. Look at that. Same theme. Everything looks good. Everything looks amazing. And now what I can do is I can copy it. I can just export to FlutterFlow. That copies into my clipboard. And I can just click here, paste. Paste this. And this is our login screen. How cool is this? Just going to say login. And this works perfectly. Works perfectly. And now what we need to do is we need to connect it to our Supabase. And for that, we need to enable Supabase Auth. Type authentication, enable authentication. I'm going to do Supabase. And initial page is login. Logged in page is explore stays. And now we can connect it. So login. And we're going to be using email. Now we need to pass email field and password field. So these fields, we need to just pass them. Okay. And so for that, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to click here, set it from a variable, come over here, widget state, this one, and then the same thing here. Variable, widget state, enter your password. And now when they entered, they should hopefully log in. Okay, so let me go ahead and run this app. And what's our login? It told us, but I already forgot. Give me a user and password for one of the logins. Okay, there it is, Alex. Alex Rivers, I think. Let's go ahead and log in, see if it works. Create a new session. Okay, so this is our email and this is our password. Okay, so we're getting an error, but that's okay. Just gonna save that, do that, and I'm gonna paste it to our model. Okay, so it's gonna be looking at, and hopefully it says I fixed it, patched it, and let's see if it works now. Okay, now it works. Look at that. So I'm logged in, but I still don't have the bottom panel, these tab views, right? Tab views, I forgot, status bar, I forgot what is that called. So we need to do that because there's no way to get to the other pages, right? So I'm going to go ahead and enable it. It's called a navbar. Forgot the navbar. Okay. Well, this page doesn't need a navbar, but the other ones do. This needs a navbar. Onboarding doesn't. Profile page needs a navbar. Explore stays needs a navbar. Stay details does not need a navbar because it's going to come from explore stays. So now we're going to go here, enable our navbar, and profile is last, bookings. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I like. And well, detail page needs to have it visible. Okay, so now we have this navbar here. We just need to set the icons. And this is explore, maybe airplane. Yeah, something like this. And what do we have here? Profile settings, person. And then we have, what's the other one? Bookings. $, or I don't know, maybe this is a checkbox. Okay, so that looks good. That looks good to me. So now when the user logs in, they can go to their profile page. So let's go ahead and refresh this. All right, there we are. Look at this, our bookings. And this is me. And so now what I can do is I can come over here to our profile settings and I can pull in the proper authenticated user. Supabase query, profile, dashboard, single row, filter, user ID is equal to auth user. Okay, that is what we have. And so now we can fill everything in. Name, display name, and this is their title. Is it title? Forgot what it's what profile dashboard row. Profile dashboard. Headline. That's the one. Headline, verify. Do we have this? Verification status. There you go. So you can do that if we have verification status. And I think we can just do it like this. Is Nomad verified? Okay, so if it's verified, this gets displayed. Host rating, okay? Another more stat cards. Really nice. We can just pass it. Rating. This is stays count. And this is average Average speed. Yep, there it is. See, I don't even need to search for it, right? It knows it because it understands the schema. And that's pretty much it, right? So log out, we need to send log out as an action. And we also need an avatar URL. We have an edit here. That's pretty much it. Let's see, we have this required. We have this min Wi-Fi Mbps, right? Minimum. So that could be there. We also have a version build, which is nice. Okay, so now we have all of this. So now if I refresh it, let's see if that works. Okay, come over here, and there it is. 50, it should say 50 megabits, but all of this is from our system, 4.9, 24, 850. If we go in here, you see 4.9, 24, 850. It's all from the system. Okay, we don't have an image yet because it's a fake image, right? It's not a real one. But if it was, it would be displaying languages. Do we need to display languages somewhere? Right here. And here the problem is it's an array, right? So we can't really join them. Unique, yeah, there's nothing that allows us to join them. So I'm going to create a custom function that's just going to display them as a list. Okay, so it's going to respond. We don't need this. It's going to get an array of lists, languages, and then it's going to do something like this. I think I can do join and like this. I think it's like this. I don't remember. This is not nullable. Yeah, I think string join. I think we're joining it on the string function. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. And now we can pass languages to this, and that's going to concatenate them. Okay, and that's going to display the languages. Workspace gear. Do we have that? Countries count, rating, gear. Do we have gear? Let's see. Needs standing desk, needs quiet zone. So we have this, needs ergonomic chair. Okay, so yeah, these are preferences, right? So when you click on it, it's going to display the preferences, but we are storing them. So I'm just not going to display that right now. So yeah, that's pretty much it here. Profile stays, looks good. The only thing that we need to do is it did not expand it, right? It's still, it's all of this is text, when in fact it should be, like a select or like a calendar or something like that, right? Anywhere, this should all be like some kind of autocomplete here. Okay, so that's the only thing. But other than that, things are starting to come together. Okay, so we have this login screen. I'm just gonna remove this for now. Just gonna do a login. Okay, so we have this, we have stay, we have this right here. Okay, we have our preferences. We also have in this onboarding, right? So onboarding is, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna link that to explore, right? I'm just gonna do this, navigate to explore stays, and log into the login page. Navigate, and you can skip this, right? Which can potentially just navigate to stays. Something like this. This is fine. Log in, find your workspace. Now we still need to do the bookings, right? We have not done the bookings, okay? So with bookings, it's nice because if we come over here, look at this. We have all cancel, past, upcoming. We have these views for us. So what that means is that upcoming, past, cancel. So depending on when they click, we can display that list that gets data from the view, okay? And so what we can do here is we can feed the booking card. The booking cards are going to be the same because our views have the same field names, okay? And so what we're going to do here is we are going to, in fact, what I think we should do is, depending on what they select over here, we should display a different list view, okay? And so the easiest way to do it would be to create some kind of state. Okay, so by default, it's upcoming, and it's going to list upcoming. If it's past days, it's going to list past days. If it's cancel, it's going to list cancel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a page state variable. So type, booking list type, and we're just going to assign it. By default, it's going to be upcoming. And depending on if they change, if they click here, we're going to update. I haven't used choice chips in a while, so we can just do this. Just add options. Past days. And I can just add another. And then what? Canceled. So we already have canceled. It's upcoming. So upcoming and then cancel. Okay. And they need some padding, not label padding, general padding, this padding. And they need some chip spacing. Okay. They need some spacing. Okay. Perfect. And so now, depending on which one is selected, we can do it correctly. So initial is going to be upcoming. And let's do selected. What do we have here? It's green background and white text. So selected is green background and white text. Okay. And the other ones, they are what color? White background, black text. Okay. So unselected, white background and black text, right? Yeah. Yeah. That looks good. Is it? Yeah. Black text like this. Okay, we just need a border and we need a label padding for the label. Something like this, and we need a border. Border is black and also here. Okay, that looks better. Okay, we just need maybe a label padding, something like this, 5. And then unselected label padding also 5. Perfect. Okay, so something like this. All right, so with these choice chips, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be controlling which one is selected and displaying the views appropriately, okay? And we're going to be using a page state variable for this. And so if we select this booking card, you see this right here is the column that displays it, okay? And so this column, we're going to convert this into a list widget, right? So we're going to say list widget, list view, and we're going to delete one of them because we don't need duplicate. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this inside of a stack so that we can display multiple. And then what we can do is we can simply rename this one. So this list view is going to be upcoming, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to duplicate it again. Okay, so we have upcoming. This next one is going to be past days, so past. And then this one here is going to be canceled. And so now we're going to set a condition here. So upcoming is only going to be displayed if that variable, right? So we have this variable here. Booking list type is set to upcoming. Okay. And so we're going to come over here and we're going to have a condition equal to upcoming. Okay. And same thing here, past. And once again here is equal to cancel like this. Okay, and by default, it's set to upcoming, right? So we have this as upcoming. So automatically that's going to be upcoming. And so we have that. Now, when they click on it, we can capture what they're clicking on. Okay, so when they click on it, we can go over here. We can get an action, unselect it. And what we can do is we can say update page state, set booking list type, and we're going to set it to the widget state choice chips, right? That's the value that the user clicked on, okay? And that's automatically going to be set to that, okay? Okay, so when they click on it, that's going to change the page state variable, and it's going to display the correct one, okay? And so here we need to feed it correctly, right? This right here, we need to add a query, Supabase query. And what is this right here? Upcoming, okay? This is upcoming, and we need to filter list of rows. We need to add a filter. User ID is equal to user ID. Okay? And same thing here. Supabase query. This is past stays, past. Filter user ID is equal to auth user and list view cancel. Supabase canceled filter user ID is equal to auth user. All right. And so one of them, one at a time, is going to be shown. Okay. Because we have this exclusion thing, right? Based on the visibility here, okay? And so now what we need to do is we need to configure the booking card, right? So this is all gonna, the booking cards are gonna work the exact same way in all of these lists. And so I'm gonna come here. This is gonna be my image. This is gonna be city. This is status. This is title, Wi-Fi. This is date. This is setup. This is CTA. Okay. Very, very simple. And same thing here. Okay, image, city, pending, status, title, Wi-Fi, date, setup, CTA. And last one, this is the canceled, same thing, image, city, status, title, and we need the date, setup, and CTA label. And we also have a couple of warnings about this unique key. Let's go ahead and set them. This is going to be this booking ID and booking ID, booking ID. Okay, and now we don't have any warnings, okay? That was not required, but it's still a good idea to do it. All right, let's go ahead and run our app. All right, so here's our app over here. And if we go over here, we should hopefully see some. So do we see any upcoming? Let's take a look. Okay, I do see upcoming, and so we need to see why it's not being displayed here. This is past stays. All of this is correct. You see, this is changing. Page state is changing. So we need to see where the issue is. So it's something with our stack. Is it? Yeah, upcoming. Okay, let me double check. This is actually capital upcoming. Okay, that's the issue. So we need to standardize it a lowercase. So we're going to go back to chips, come back over here, and yeah, it's setting it basically to these values. Okay, so we need to change how this looks. So this needs to be upcoming like this. This needs to be past stays, and this needs to be cancel like this, because that's how the value is being set. So now I'm going to make it uppercase. Let's go ahead and try that again. All right, and there you have it. So this is upcoming, this is past stays, and this is cancel. Looks like it's working perfectly. The only thing that we have is this overflow here, this thing, and we're going to be fixing that right now. Okay, and so if we go over here, you can see it's overflowing by 14 pixels here, okay? So let's make this smaller. Let's make the fonts a little bit smaller. Let's make 12. Let's do that. We have this overflow. Yeah, so it looks like this is fine, but this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh it. Okay, and that looks a lot better. It still looks good, and it fits everything, right? Now, if we had a different problem, we wanted to change the layout, change how something looks, then we would focus on that. And so we go to past stays, canceled. Everything looks really, really good. Okay, we just need to fix the images, but that's a data issue, not so much that. And this is also a data issue. And so it's coming along really nicely. And this looks good because we have the views already prepared for us. Everything is good. Everything looks really, really good. Okay, we just need to do maybe the filtering here. That's really easy to do. And a couple of other polishing. And we are going to have a proof of concept app built using this FlutterFlow Designer very, very shortly. Now, there's one more important thing that you need to understand about this app is that we have a lot of views that cover all the fixed static situations, use cases. Okay, so for this, we know what data we need to display, right? For this page, for profile, we know what data, it's fixed. It's not like the user is going to come in and say, hey, I want this data to be displayed. We don't have that feature. Whatever we see is whatever is there. Okay, that's why a view makes sense here, because a view is fixed. But one situation where a view is not going to be enough. So in this explore stage, let's say the user needs to enter there, they need to search by certain parameters, right? These parameters are going to be dynamic. We cannot create every possible view combination to know what the user is going to search for, to account for all of these possible searches. And that is where you need a Supabase function. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, this is different from a cloud function, okay? So let me show you what I mean. So if you go into your Supabase dashboard and you go into database, you have a lot of, things that you can look at, triggers, tables, enumerated types, right? So if you go into functions, you can see your functions here. So if you click on this function over here, this is the function that was created via our AI agent to do this kind of dynamic views. And that's exactly what it does. It outputs a dynamic view for us. Okay, so this is what it kind of outputs. And these are the arguments, right? So city, check in, check out, all the parameters that you may be searching for that you need, you're going to get in this kind of form for you. Okay, and if you go to our check out our AI agent, you can see that I asked it to run a sample parameter set. And here's some sample calls, right? You can do a example call. You can do a city search. You can do a high Wi-Fi plus standing desk filter. Okay, so you need, let's say, minimum Wi-Fi speed 400 megabits. You need a standing desk. You want to sort by Wi-Fi, and these are the results. If you want to do a availability filter with exact dates, and this is the sorting, these are the results you get. And this is what it tells you also. Notable behavior, Bamboo Forest Loft is excluded from the April 1520 because it overlaps the seated confirmed booking, etc., right? So it even tells you what happened, okay? Now, these functions are not supported by FlutterFlow automatically, okay? You need to use them as an API call, okay? So what we need to do is we need to create this API call, right? With these parameters, you also have a simpler example. And so depending on, what values you're going to be passing, you need to actually make this API call. And so that's what I want to do right now. So we're going to copy this. We're going to go into our app. We're going to go into this API here. And here you can add an API call or you can import an API definition. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ask it, generate an API, an open API definition of this Supabase function for easy import into FlutterFlow. Okay, and so it's going to go ahead and do it, and then we can just import it here. And there it is. Use this Open API 3.0 spec. That's what it is. Let's go ahead and save it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take all this. Or in fact, I'm just going to ask it to save it. Let me see. Upload file. I need to upload a file. So save the Open API spec for the function as a file. Okay, and that's it. And then we can just upload the file directly. But that's what it's going to contain, the spec. Okay, and that's what it saved it right here, right? So we're going to go ahead and find this file. So here's the file right here. We're going to go ahead and upload it here. And there it is. It was just uploaded. And if you click here, you can see that it has just one post request. Okay. And so you can click on it and you can see all the things, all the stuff that you need. You can even test it. You can do all that. So take a look at this. We have a body. We have variables that we need to specify. We have everything that we need. So we can even do a sample response right now. Okay. So now I need my API key. And my API key is going to be just my anon key. Okay. So I'm going to go into my database dashboard. I'm going to go over here, API keys, legacy, copy this anon key that you can use. And what we want to do is we want to paste it here. And I believe this one is also the same one. Okay, right there. And we have a sample call. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to test this API key and see if it works. Okay, so this was successful, but it's not returning anything. Okay, so let me go ahead and see what's going on and see if the issue is on our side. Can you check if these params should return anything? Those params return no rows. Okay, so now it's going to play around with it and it's going to give me something that actually returns something. So that's perfect. Okay, so yeah, Lisbon is probably, something about these parameters are not working, but it's telling me that, if I adjust it, it's going to return them. So let's take a look. So if I true, false, true, let's see, Lisbon 1520, 400, false, true, standing desk is going to be, let's say, quiet zone is false, and then true, true, Wi-Fi high. Okay, so let's see if that works. Okay, and now we're getting it, right? So we wanted Lisbon, but the parameters that we sent did not result in a response. And now we're getting that one place, I think, that we have in Lisbon because these match up now, okay? And so at this point, we have a way to create dynamic views, which is exactly what you need if you're dealing with dynamic input. A user is entering something. We can't predict what they're going to answer. We cannot create every possible view combo. Now, because we're dealing with dynamic data, we can no longer work with this data here. So remember, this thing right here, this stay card, and this list view, it's being populated by this right here, right? A view. But we can't deal with views anymore, okay? And so what we need to do is if a user types something here, we need to populate this data ourselves, right? Because what's going to happen is, let's say they press enter, we have this enter call, right? So right now we're just, doing a submit, but we can't do that. We need to actually execute an API call, get the data, and actually display the data, right? We are working with the data directly, okay? We can no longer rely on this, right? This right here, because that's not going to work anymore, right? This is just, it's static way of doing it, right? If you have a couple of filters, this can work. But if you're dealing with lots of data, lots of filtering, it's not going to work. And so what you need to do is, well, first, you need to ensure that when user presses enter here, we're no longer setting like page state variables anymore. We're actually executing an API call. And so I'm going to go ahead and edit this, and I'm going to delete all this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute an API call. I'm going to say, well, I need to execute an API call. I'm going to go over here. We have this API call, and then we're going to be setting the parameters. Well, like API key, we're going to set that this one right here. That's an important parameter. And then this one right here. Okay. But that's not all. We also need to set the other parameters like, the place, the check-in, check-out, and all that. So we need to go back. We need to go back here, and we need to make sure that these are actual parameters now, okay? Variables, right? So let's say, what is it called? City, check-in, check-out. So let's go and start simple. City, check-in, check-out. Okay, so this is string, this is string, this is string, okay? And now let's go into body, and now we need to put this there. So it's no longer hard-coded to Lisbon. It's now city, check-in, and then check-out. Okay? And so now I can try this here, and I want to say Lisbon, and what's our check-in and check-out? Let's say, was it 2025? 2026. And this should also return the same thing. We're just testing to make sure that everything is working. So this works. We're going to go back here, and we're going to pass on these parameters. So city is going to come from widget state, right? I mean, yeah, it's not city. It's actually like a free form, but I'm just passing it as a city. And let's say chicken and checkout, I'm just going to set it here, hard-coded. 15. Obviously, these are going to be passed in by the user, okay? And if it's successful, we're going to get a list and that we need to save. And so what we need to do first is we need to understand how we're going to be saving it. And we can do that very, very easily. You want to come here and you want to execute it. And when you get a response, you can copy that, go back here and save it as a data type. And we can just save it as a response type. Okay, I'm going to say create. And then what we need to do is we need to just paste it. In fact, that's a better way of doing it. We're not going to create it manually. We're just going to paste it. That's what I wanted to do. And we're going to say response type. And it's an array. Okay, it's a list. And now it has created for us. And now we have everything that we need. But there's another thing that you need to do. When you come over here to this API call and you do response and test, you want to make sure that you parse it as a data type, is a list. Okay, there we go. So now we'll be able to get the data, but we still need to display it here. Now, the way that we need to do it is we need to make sure that this is going to refresh automatically once the user searches for something. And to do that, we need to store it as page state. And so that way we can have the user type something, get the data, update page state, and this whole thing is going to refresh automatically. Okay. So I'm going to say, come over here, and we want to do data type, response type. It's a list. And then we can just say response, I don't know, response list. something like this. And then when the user types, enters, we can now save it automatically, right, into that page state. Update page state, response list, set value, and then we're going to get this a action output. As data type, that's it. We don't have to do anything else. Okay. And that's going to go ahead and save it there, right? And if it doesn't work, you want to do an action something like, or a snack bar, error, API call error. Okay, if there's an issue, the user can see an issue. And that's all we need to do. And so now it's in the page state. We need to display it here. So we need to come back here, list view. It's not going to come directly from Supabase anymore. We're going to delete all that. It's going to come from here. So we're going to go into page state, response list. And now this is our stay item, right? Because that's what it is. And now we need to actually make sure that we're passing it here. Okay, so we're going to go in here, item, data structure field, stay ID, same thing like we did before. Image. The problem is we can't type it directly anymore, right? We need to go data structure field, image, hero image URL, Wi-Fi speed. So this is something that FlutterFlow can work on. This would be a nice thing. So this is what? Wi-Fi speed, a title. Yeah, you see, I have to do it manually. I can't type it anymore. You know, it's not going to find it because I need to go through this location. But it's okay. It's okay. Price and then image path. Oh, this is image description. So that's what we need. Okay, so now it's image path, right? And this is a string. Okay, so that's not going to work. We need to actually make sure that we have it correctly, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new function, and let's see if it's able to do it. We want image path, and we're going to have an argument, which is image path string, image URL. That's a string. We don't want to do nullable, no nullable. And then we're going to come in here, convert image path string into image path. And let's see if it's able to do it. No, that's not right. That is not correct. Image path, let me see. That is incorrect. And this right here does it. This returns image path. So this is correct. So what we can do now is get image path. Okay, and then we can just pass the URL. And this right here is image path, even though it's a string. Okay. Okay, so now we can just pass it here. There we go. Okay. So now that converts it, and that should work. Let's see our issues, custom functions. Okay, looks good. And this, let me double check. Okay, so this should be the city. I'm saying loft. Let's say this is city right here. Let's say I do Lisbon. Okay, and let's say input city. All right, and let me take a look at this. Okay, city. Okay, so now let's go ahead and run it and see how it looks. All right, so take a look at this. Right now, there's nothing being displayed, right? That's, that's just a placeholder, right? Nothing is being displayed. Why? Because page state is empty, right? And so now if we press Lisbon, that should execute it. And now we're getting results. Okay, now we got all of these results from that API call to our Supabase function. Okay, so there's an issue with the image because it's not a real image. If we go to our database, it's not a real image. To our table, and we go into explore stays. And so Lisbon, it's not a real image, right? This is just an example. And let's say I want to use a real image. Well, I'm going to go into stays, Lisbon, and I'm going to go ahead and find its image, this one. Okay, so now we're using an image from Wikipedia for testing, and now this should work, hopefully. Okay, so if I press enter here, execute, and there's the image. Okay, from Wikipedia. So it's just about putting in the right image. And so this looks good. All the data shows up correctly, right? Because we're getting it from this. Everything is coming from here. That function essentially gives us all the fields that we need that a view would give us, right? According to this page. That's why it was built like this, right? So for situations where you have fixed tables, fixed data on the page, you'd want to use a view. You'd want to build a view beforehand and use that. But for situations where you have dynamic data coming in, such as a user typing, a query, dates, guests, etc. You have dynamic thing. You want to be using a Supabase function, not to be confused with Supabase Cloud function. That's a different one. That's a different thing altogether. And so that's how you build an app with FlutterFlow right now, using advanced tools that do a lot of the work for you. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos such as this one, having me build a more complex app, a simpler app, a different app, let me know in the comments below, and I'll gladly do it step by step and show you the entire process. If you want to learn more about this, you want to clone this app, you want to get access to the prompts, you want to get access to more resources, go ahead and check out our amazing Patreon community, where I'm going to be making all of that available to our amazing members.